Now I'm ready. Hello, welcome everyone. It's Carla. I am Carla Sanders, the Cosmic Crone. And every full moon and new moon, I bring you, as my gift to the people, a divine feminine astrology reading. And so it is time for the new moon divine feminine astrology reading. Oh my gosh. I want to presence this time that we're in right now, this particular reading. This is the second new moon in Cancer in 2020. The first was in the initial minutes of the sign of Cancer on the summer solstice or the winter solstice down south. And so this is the second new moon. The sun and moon are conjunct at 28-27 Cancer. And Mercury has just turned direct. Venus is still traversing her direct. Actually, she's out of her shadow phase. She's in new territory. Mars is preparing to go retrograde. There is a comet in the sky, the first naked eye comet in the northern hemisphere since Hale-Bopp over 20 years ago. And that's an incredibly special moment. The comets, we don't read them in astrology. I might look and see if this comet is saying something about an individual chart if I'm reading an individual chart. But I am going to talk about how the comet relates to our time. So this is a rare moment. And then this is what the chart is all about. We have 15 planets in a row in retrograde. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. Whoops, hold still. Starting with Hecate over in Sagittarius all the way to Chiron in Aries. 15, every planet that you see right there. And there's some doozies. They're in retrograde right now. And that includes Pluto, Jupiter, Saturn, Nessus, Neptune, the Great Attractor, which is not a planet. It's a point outside our solar system, outside our galaxy even. Even that one's retrograde. So this has an impact on us. We're feeling it. And I've been feeling it building for a week or more. And people in my world are feeling it. The concept of clearing, doing clearing spells, clearing rituals. The new moon is always a time for clearing and releasing and preparing the way for what is coming that is new. It's like you release and then you plant. Kind of usually it's done as one ceremony. And for some reason, and I do it somewhat casually. I'm like, yeah, here it is. It's the new moon. I'm releasing and planting, releasing and planting. And I'm kind of doing that all the time anyway, one way or another. And this time I feel so strongly. I think what has happened is that I am completing so much, thanks to the eclipse series we just had, that I am ready to release. I know I don't need so much that I don't need anymore. I am really ready to release things that I've been working on for possibly 20 years or longer, my entire life. And I'll bet the same thing is going on for some of you, one way or another. So this reading is in the context of knowing that this is the way it is right now. We are all, this is a level of release energy, of retrospective, introspective energy, the likes of which we have not had in a while. It beats anything a Mercury retrograde can give us by itself. So I'm going to kind of just I did a lot of praying before I started here, and so I'm just going to let the planets speak. First off, when you look at the chart, it's so humid here, everything's all crinkly, you can see that there are lots of red lines. Those red lines are a ton of oppositions and a lot of squares. And that means we still have work to do. This is a moment of doing work. This release is not, I started to say it's not a snap of your fingers, but actually the release moment is. But it's like there's metabolism. There is still some chewing and digesting to do. So let me explain what I mean by that. All right, we've got obviously the sun and moon. They're in conjunction, and they are opposite, in an exact opposition to Saturn. That is probably one of the biggest ones right there. That would keep you busy if that's the only thing there was. So you have the new moon. It is the portal saying, okay, here's an opening. Go through it. Send things through it. And then opposite that is Saturn. Now, Saturn is the planet in Capricorn, ruler of Capricorn, retrograding back into Capricorn after the first ingress into Aquarius. So it's like going back and tying up loose ends. Those of you who had a Capricorn Saturn return, first or second Saturn return in the last 2 years, you are going, anything that needs to be swept up and forgiven and released. Oh, thank you. I just realized what all these squares and what the action is that we need to be doing. This is all about forgiveness. One way or another, especially if you've had a Saturn return during Capricorn, but all the work that Saturn has had us do these past 2+ years in Capricorn, all the conjunctions to Jupiter, Pluto, Chariklo, all the other planets, Saturn, all that Saturn means in Capricorn, doing the work around institutions, governments, rules, laws, the rules we carry around in our heads, the rules we were given as children that we are probably rightly in rebellion against. And then some rules, like the golden rule, the rule of love your neighbor as yourself, the rule of, treat others the way you would like to be treated, the everything I needed to know I learned in kindergarten type of rules. Those rules, we can apply those to Saturn as well. We don't think of him that way, but Saturn is not a bad guy. Saturn is a container. Saturn keeps us from blowing apart. Saturn creates structure. Saturn, it can be like the jar that holds the oil, or it can be like the skeleton that holds up the body, the muscles and the fat and the blood. The walls of the blood vessels that pump our blood. We do not work without structure. It's the nature of form. Saturn is form. And the reason we are here, we are spirit brought into form for a purpose. And so Saturn has been in the sign of institutions for these years. And for some of us, with the Saturn returns, he's been really putting the squeeze on us, saying it's now or never. Get right. Get right with Saturn. Get right with yourself. Fulfill your purpose. Do the work you need to do. And so, in this last moment, at this particular new moon, opposite this new moon, Saturn is saying the work, the hard work, the heavy lifting is done. Now, the work you do is you forgive yourself, you forgive anyone else, human being, institution, God, ex-lovers, mothers, fathers, anybody who needs to forgive. Do the forgiveness, because that forgiveness frees you. If you are not forgiving, you are holding. And you can release until you are blue in the face. And if you have not simply said, I forgive, then you haven't released anything. It will not leave. It can't. It's hooked in. And so, if you know about cord cutting, a cord cutting ritual could be something you would do to include love and forgiveness, and always, always building yourself up, strengthening yourself with self-love and self-forgiveness. You cannot begin to give to another what you have not been able to give to yourself and receive within yourself. So that's a huge thing right now. Everything else is practically gravy, except that we also have, I'm going to focus on the Chiron retrograde. Chiron is the great healer and mentor. And so when Chiron is backtracking, and it'd be really interesting to know where this Chiron retrograde is transiting your natal chart and how that's impacting the work that you've come here to heal and to do. But when Chiron is backtracking, it's once again, it's heal and release, forgive and release, forgive and release. It's like the work that was done in forward motion is now like, let it go, let it go, let it go. Own that it's complete. Let it be complete. There is a thing that we do as human beings, and you can ask me how I know. And that is, we fall in love with our wound. We fall in love with our pain. Our identity is so tied up with that, with partly the effort, the joy, the pleasure. You know, Carolyn Elliott talks about existential kink. We actually fall in love with that thing that we say we hate and we want to change. And so Chiron, right now especially, is saying, acknowledge that. Acknowledge how much of your identity has been tied up in this pain, in this struggle, in this wound, and in the relationships that you have formed through this wound, because this wound has been seeking others to commune with. Codependency, your parents, your siblings, your lovers, your friends, and your healers, your healing community, your spiritual community. We are often drawn to situations and people who are in the same muck we're in. We long for company. We long for people to understand us and witness us. And that is a step on the healing path. And so what may happen, one of the things as you do genuine Chiron work at this particular new moon and during the next months, I think this is going on until something like December 9th or 15th. It almost takes us up to solstice and the Saturn-Jupiter reunion. But the work of this particular moment with Chiron retrograde at the time of this new moon and all these other planets. See, these planets, you could pick a planet. It may not be all the planets, but it covers everything. All these planets cover every wound known to human beings. So you know, which one is active in your life right now? So Chiron is saying, acknowledge this, acknowledge how much this has meant to you, how much a part of your life it has been, how it has helped you survive, how it has given your life meaning. Our wounds give our lives meaning. Did you know that? And if you choose to move forward, if you choose to create something new, if you choose change, if you decide to change, and that is an if, because this is a decision, this is something you have to want, then Chiron is saying, with love, let it go. And that what you risk with that, and what may well have to happen, is that the structure of your life, and now we're back to Saturn again, the structure of your life that you've built, your spiritual path, your friends, your circles, your family, maybe even your primary relationships, maybe even your children, these have to transform. You have to transform those relationships. You may not have to cut them out of your life, but you may have to draw very firm boundaries and recognize that you are moving on, and they may not be able to come with you, and they may not ought to come with you. So this is the meaning of this Chiron retrograde. It's big, it's intense, it's scary. I would love to say that it's sweet, that it's darling, that it's comfortable, that it's easy, that you are so ready for this. But this is Chiron, and he doesn't care whether it's sweet, comfortable, or ready. He has been living with a wound for 900 years. He knows what it's like. He knows what you're going through. And the thing is, he moved on. He did his work. He fulfilled his purpose. He was the mentor to heroes. He is the healer. He invented medicine and healing for mortals and immortals. He is a bridge. He is a shamanic figure. All centaurs are, in a way. So, meet Chiron as he is backing up through Aries and say, Chiron, help me do this. Help me do this. It feels difficult from where I'm sitting right now, but it is so necessary, and the rewards are so vast. And Chiron will give you the courage to do that. That's what he's all about. What else do we have? Well, like I said, there's everybody. There's old Death and Transformation himself, Pluto, in his kind of perpetual for 2020 conjunction with Jupiter. And Jupiter is amplifying. It's kind of gone underground into the internal realms with these retrogrades. But this is really deep. This can go all the way in, and it's for you. You know, I am describing this very personally for you and what you need to do. You are sitting in a world that is coping with a pandemic, that is coping with something very new, a complete societal shift that is happening in chaos, worldwide chaos. Let's face it. We are holding on as best we can to what feels normal. But we know that everything has changed, and we are slowly adjusting. And we are also resisting the adjustment. And so I say to you that this time and for the rest of this year, the astrology in the entire of 2020 has been gifting us with the clues for how do we maintain our integrity and our sovereignty while shifting, while accommodating a shifting world, while being grounded in truth. A lot of the conflict that we're seeing in society right now over mask, don't mask, open up, lock down, conspiracy theories, I have absolutely no more bandwidth for that. I serve something much greater. And the more I can remember that, the better my mental health. So recognize you are resourced in something much greater than everything that's going on around you. So find that place inside of you, that resource inside of you, and the chart gives you some clues to what they are. And I'm getting there. Find that resource inside of you so that you can make grounded decisions. You can keep in mind the important things that I just mentioned, being kind, being loving your neighbor as yourself, doing unto others as you would like to be treated. These are things that I learned in Sunday school, and they are the basis for things that we learned as little children that do not fail. Every spiritual tradition, indigenous to Vedic to Roman Catholic to Muslim, teaches it. Because that's how we thrive on the planet. That is how we can stay in these bodies on the planet. And we can look around us and say, but that's not working out very well. Well, here we are. Look at everything. When I first looked at this chart, I said, look at that. Opposite the full moon, everything in Capricorn is retrograde. Capricorn. So we're looking at institutional changes, political upheaval, governmental upheaval, and something that is absolutely fundamental and that begins to knock at the foundations of patriarchy itself, and that is systemic racism and white supremacy. That is a structure that is finished. It is finished. It should never have existed. It is artificial. It is fake in the sense that it is not natural. It is not of nature. It is invented. And it is invented for no good purpose whatsoever. It is invented to invest power in one group and suppress other groups. So we know that. We know that in our heart of hearts. And so this may be the work that you are in the midst of in a really challenging way. So and it may be things that you don't understand, things that are like dawning on you, firing off in your brain that you never knew. And I can speak like this because I had my moment, and I still have my moments of like, oh my God, I never knew. I never knew that about myself. This was invisible to me. White supremacy and internalized racism and bias is invisible to me. And just like internalized patriarchy is invisible to me, how I hold myself in the place where I will be safe, I will be good, I will be acceptable. And this is a big part of what I am releasing at this new moon, recognizing how much of that I do and how harmful it is to me and to the people around me. So this is here. It's all happening in Capricorn. It feels like a major societal upheaval. Feels like death, feels like anarchy, feels like chaos. And there are people who want to protect the status quo so much they don't care who they hurt or terrorize. And our work as awakened, spiritual, forgiving, loving human beings, and I'm speaking specifically to women now, or to, let me broaden that, to human beings who understand that our role in the world, our primary relationship is with divine, and divine is feminine as well as masculine. Divine is sacred union. And so we are doing that work inside of us, and we are holding that space and finding a way to be while the world is saying, no, I will kill anything that tries to change. No, it's not pretty. Chiron says it's not pretty, and it's not. It is glorious. That's what it is. We are in a glorious time, and I think the great blessing of this comet right now in the sky, in the northern hemisphere, it's a coincidence it's in the northern hemisphere, it's for everybody, but maybe the northern hemisphere is ground zero of white supremacy, at least in this current time. So maybe we need that far-off star messenger, that neo-wise, new wisdom coming in to remind us of who we are and what we have and how we can create a new world out of the material that we are, out of our desire and our intention, out of our pure hearts, out of our forgiveness, out of our self-acceptance, self-love, self-healing. There are so many things that are going on still. There is a T-square. Oh, I'll mention this directly. Nessus, the planet of ancestral lineage, the healing of ancestral lineage, is conjunct Ceres. Ceres, they are both in 12 degrees Pisces, and Ceres, she represents the earth. So you can just say Mama Earth, Ceres, but she also represents the concepts of nourishments, sustenance, abundance, and sufficiency, having enough. Everyone has enough. There is enough for everyone, and everything works together. So it becomes the network, the worldwide network of nourishment, sustenance, and how we communicate. We all must have food. And so Ceres is about how we come together to nourish one another, and how we sustain the earth, how we relate to the earth so that we may all be nourished. And we know that the earth right now, and food, and the quality of food, and the widespread and general availability of food to all people, all beings on the planet, that this is not the way the world is designed right now. People are a commodity, and they may be fed or not fed. Food and foodstuffs are a commodity, and they are bought and sold, whether they are good for us or not, whether they are poisoning us or not. So one of the great wounds we have is the commodification of earth and its resources, especially those that directly sustain life, like food and water. And then the other ones that also come from the earth: shelter and clean air, security and safety, a place to lay down to sleep at night, to be warm, to raise your children, to raise your young. These are basic things that every creature needs on the planet, and we deny that to so many human beings. So those two are together, and they are in a T-square between Hecate conjunct the great attractor opposite Venus over in Gemini. What does that mean? What that means is there's action that is required. Venus is the great shining one. She is a morning star right now, and she is saying, I am the Queen of Heaven. I represent beauty and abundance and love. And I see you over there, Hecate, along with the great attractor, this great, basically feminine god. We'll just call the great attractor feminine divine. She is that. And I hear you. And I know that we are at a crossroads. But all of them, they're looking at each other and they're saying, we are at a crossroads. Which way will you choose? And then you look. Venus looks to her left and Hecate looks to her right, vis-a-vis the chart. And they see Ceres and Nessus. They see this critical moment. This critical moment where the sins of our ancestors, of the patriarchy, are saying, you know, they made a lot of laws to cure the environment and to reduce carbon emissions and to clean up the air and the water and the soil and toxic waste dumps and all of that. They made all those laws and to save the old growth forest. And you know, we've done a lot. Not as much as needed to be done, but we did what we could. No, let me rephrase that. We did not do what we could. We did what we did. And now there are people in power who are saying, cross that out, cross that out, cross that out. Go ahead, rape, burn, pillage, dig, pollute, because shareholders' profits are more important. We are at a crossroads. And Venus, she has her shadow side, but she always stands for love and abundance. She is looking at that and saying, you know, get your shit together, motherfuckers. You know, you go too far, you take the wrong path at this point, and neither me nor anybody else can do anything for you. That's where we're at. So it could be that your work, your personal work, is related to either your personal nutrition, your personal sustenance, or your work around the environment, your political action, environmental action. What else have we got? We have some pretty important resources here that I'm going to talk about. Vesta is up. The sun and the moon just passed Vesta at 20 Cancer. Vesta is the priestess, the high priestess, and how she relates to each of us individually is she tends the sacred erotic flame on our inner altar. All of us have a Vesta inside of us who is firing the sacredness. You could say the sacredness of sex, but the sacredness of the erotic. And so she has a connection to Venus. She has a connection to Eros. She keeps that flame going. And she turns it towards devotion. She is devoted to that part of us. And she gives us the power and the energy and the desire, the motivation to be devoted to that part of ourselves, our spiritual life. And whether you're conscious of it or not, every single one of us, our spiritual life is rooted in our erotic life, our sexual energy. And this is very ancient. Our deep, deep, deep ancestors knew this. We have forgotten it. We have separated it, which is why all these things I'm describing can even happen, because we are separated from what we call the erotic, the sexual. It is really the deep-rooted life force that connects earth and sky through each one of us. This is sacred sexuality. And we are all living it. We are all living it. We all have the capacity to live it. It is keeping us all here, whether we're conscious of it or not. And it is the great healing that most of us have to do at some point in our lives, to heal that split between the spiritual and the erotic. So the priestess right now is in an exact trine to Neptune. Neptune is the he is the cloud. Neptune is dreams, visions, the unconscious, the deep spiritual realms. You know, the unconscious is really huge. It has the id, the part that says, you know, whatever, I must keep her alive at all cost, and the spiritual who says, you know, there is no death. What are you worried about? You know, so Neptune is all of that. He can tap into any of that. He can create illusion, delusion. He can hide and obfuscate. And the priestess, I was pondering that as I looked at this trine, this flow of energy between the priestess and Neptune. The priestess, her work is to pull back the veil. By definition, the priestess maintains the veil and pulls it back ritually so that the people may see and learn and experience and receive the blessing. And then she closes it again, maintaining the sacredness and the mystery. She is the keeper of mysteries. And she is also, therefore, the initiator, because each of us need to be initiated at one level or another into these mysteries of life. And so I think that is another reason that this particular new moon feels so potent for release. We are all sitting in an initiation. We are in the midst of it. And we are walking through one of the gates. We have the potential to walk through one of the gates of initiation during this particular new moon of release, forgiveness, metabolism of all that has happened that you are ready to release, and then releasing what you're done with, and then planting something new and having the wisdom and the resources to nurture it. This could be where Ceres comes in again. You are going to plant a seed once the release part is done. And I just realized I just had a huge hit. I need to offer this. I need to offer this to you this weekend. I'll figure out how that will look and let you know. And I'll give it a nominal fee. How about $28.27 for this degree of Cancer that the new moon is at? Oh, that's going to be fun. Stay tuned. I'll be back. So this is a resource. It's a resource that, everything has its shadow side. The priestess has her shadow side. She can abuse her power of maintaining the veil. She can manipulate the way the people perceive the veil. She can't really do anything with the veil itself because the veil is real. It's a spiritual fact, I think. But she has her shadow side. And so those of us who are working within our priestess archetype, and we all are this weekend, because we're going to do this release work, We're going to step up to the veil and ask it to part. So we want to be grounded in the earth, connected to spirit, and open in our hearts and tapped into our integrity. And Vesta is opposite Jupiter, also opposite Chariklo and Pallas Athene. And I believe those speak to integrity. Yeah, there's a lot going on for that. The new moon, the sun and the moon together speak to integrity as well. Let's see if there's anything else. One thing I'm going to complete with right now is this rectangle. It's pretty close to a right on mystic rectangle. And some astrologers just say, nah, it's just a flow. You know, don't even bother with it. It's not that important. But when we've got all these squares and oppositions, what I see is this is the fountain of resource. This is the replenishing well that we can draw on to guide us through this time. So if this were 3 points, it would be a grand trine. It's 4 points in the flow. The sextiles are like, I call them close harmonies, and the trines are they're melodies that work together. They just work together. It's a flow. And so we've already talked about Hecate and Venus, and they are connected to Mars in Aries and Juno in Libra. Mars in Aries. Mars is at home in Aries, and he gives this fire. If you can't, by all means, use fire in your ritual. Light a candle if that's all you can do. I will be lighting a sacred fire tomorrow night. So I'm fortunate to live where I can do big fires. So light a fire. Use the element of fire to move the energy through you, both the action, the forgiveness, the shift, the emotion, and then the release. Burn it. Let it go. And Juno, what does Juno stand for? She stands for sacred union. She stands for what is good for women and children. So on a societal level, this is, let something about your ritual include a prayer for social justice for the women and children. This is very much related to Ceres, because if all laws were made, if the structures of governments and institutions on this planet said our primary purpose is the protection of the women and the children, and making sure that they were housed, fed, clothed, supported, so they could grow up strong, educated, full of purpose, full of vigor, full of life. If they were more important than corporations and profits, we would live in paradise, honestly. We would live in paradise. And so Juno is there saying, we are creating paradise. We have to first deal with this shit show of a patriarchy, all of these Capricornic structures that have been doing the opposite of caring for women and children and other human beings and other relations of all species. We've been doing the opposite of that, but we know what we're creating. And so focus your intention on the good of women and children. And so I'm going to offer a suggestion that if you are, to the extent you're able, even if it's $1 or $5, find a woman a woman, children place to gift some money, some resource. And I'm thinking about do it in the spirit of reparations. People of color. It could be whatever you choose, wherever you are in the world. I know of two Black women who are mothers who are being supported with GoFundMe's for their children, on behalf of their children. And I'm going to make a gift to each of them. And so I say this just to let you know that this is what it can be. And so by activating Juno, by doing something very specific for the benefit of women and children, and women and children of color, and it doesn't have to be exclusively that, but if you can include that, then you are doing some of this work, this Capricorn work that is being asked of us right now. Wow, that was big and that was a lot. We are at a crossroads. This new moon is probably bigger energetically even than the eclipse a month ago. The eclipse a month ago, I was in a ceremony. I was dancing, fasting and dancing, and visioning. And I visioned so deeply, I don't even know what I visioned, but I have a feeling it had something to do with this. And in the work that I'm doing this weekend personally, I'm going to get some clarity. I'm going to understand a little bit more about my next step. And do not be dismayed. If you do the release work, you have been thinking your whole life about this thing that you are ready to release. It has been running you one way or another. And so one reason we cling to that is because we cannot see the whole story of what's next. We can only see, we step through the veil one step at a time, one layer at a time. Planting a seed is 100% pure faith. I have a garden. I planted sunflower seeds. They sprouted. I was delighted. The slugs came through and ate them all, except for one so far. And they may eat it. I don't know. It was an act of faith. The sunflowers aren't working out very well. But the tomatoes, the squash, the garlic, the pumpkins, the beets, the peas, most of it, I am drowning in abundance. That's where we are right now, my friends. Get ready to be completely awash in abundance. Just realize that it looks like it will never happen when you bury that seed in the ground. And your first work is forgiveness, release. Blessed new moon, I love you. Thank you.